Welcome. I'm Dr. Misty from Untamed Ember. Wherever you are right now, whatever you were doing before you pressed play, you don't have to leave any of that behind. You can just bring it with you. There's room for all of it right here. This piece is about something most of us were given before we were old enough to examine it. A story about love. About who gets to have it, in what shape, in what arrangement. A story that arrived so quietly and so early that for a long time it didn't feel like a story at all. It just felt like the way things are. Today, we're going to slow that story down. Not to dismantle it, not to decide anything. Just to look at it, to hold it up to the light a little and see what it's actually made of. So before we begin, I want to invite you to let your body settle just a little. Feel the surface beneath you, the weight of your seat, your feet, your hands. Notice whether you're holding anything in your chest or your jaw or your shoulders. Not to change it, just to know that it's there. In whatever state you arrived in, whether you're settled or scattered, clear or a little foggy, that's fine. You don't need to prepare yourself for this. You just need to be here. I want to start with a moment that might sound familiar. You're watching something on a screen, a movie, a show, it doesn't matter. And a character is clearly drawn to more than one person at once. Nothing dramatic, just emotionally obvious. And you feel something before you've even thought about it. A slight tightening, a quick internal move to look away from your own reaction. Or maybe it's more personal than a screen. Maybe it's the moment you noticed an attraction to someone who wasn't your partner and felt something arrive in your chest before you've done a single thing. Guilt, shame, a quick impulse to shut it down before the feeling could even finish forming. That speed is what we're here to explore. Because we don't feel that kind of automatic pre-thought response about things that we've freely and consciously examined. We feel it about things that got put into us quietly and early and without our consent. Things that arrived as the operating rules of how love is supposed to work before we ever got to read the terms. So let me give you a specific moment, one person's experience of how this happens. Lauren is 11 years old. She's on the couch with a parent, watching something on TV. What matters isn't what's on. What matters is that a character on the screen is drawn to two people at once. Her parent doesn't say anything dramatic. Maybe it's a particular quality of stillness or a small exhale. Maybe they change the channel. Maybe they say something brief and then move on. But Lauren gets the message, clearly and completely. That feeling is wrong. That kind of wanting is not who we are. No explanation, no conversation, just the data. Here's what makes that kind of transmission so powerful and so hard to work with later. There's nothing to argue with. When a rule arrives explicitly, you can examine it, push back on it, decide whether it's yours. But when it arrives as a felt sense in a room, as a shift in the air or a particular quality of silence, it doesn't feel like a rule someone gave you. It just feels like reality, like this is just the way things are. And here's the other thing worth naming. When the rule doesn't arrive alone, when it's wrapped inside a community's understanding of what it means to be good or worthy or acceptable, the cost of questioning it doesn't feel social, it feels existential. That kind of threat lives somewhere deeper than opinion, and it lives very specifically in the body. So Lauren is in her 30s now. She left that community years ago, and she still can't watch a scene like that without her chest tightening. If she left the community, then why is that feeling still there? That's the question that makes this work more than intellectual, and it's the question we're going to sit with together. So let's slow down for a moment and let what just moved through actually settle. You don't have to answer anything out loud. You don't even have to answer at all. I'm just going to offer you some places to rest your attention, and you can notice whatever shows up. Is there a version of Lauren's couch moment that is in your own history? Not necessarily dramatic, maybe just a small, clear moment when you understood without being told directly what kind of wanting was acceptable? What do you notice in your body as you let that memory surface? When you think about the story you received about how love is supposed to be structured, where did that story come from? Was it spoken or unspoken? Was it a person, a community, a broader cultural atmosphere? Whatever came up or didn't come up, that's fine. There's no right responses here. We're just beginning to look. So back to Lauren's question. She left that community, so why is that feeling still there? Here's the answer, and it changes everything about how this actually moves. When something gets reinforced enough times with enough emotional charge, and especially when it's attached to the threat of losing belonging or worth, it doesn't just stay in your thoughts. It becomes a body pattern. The nervous system learns to respond to certain cues in specific ways. And that learning isn't stored in your beliefs. It's stored in your muscles, your gut, your chest, your throat. It becomes a physiological habit that fires before your conscious mind has time to weigh in. Think about what actually happened in Lauren's body that day on the couch. Her nervous system was doing exactly what nervous systems do, taking in data, registering the emotional signal from her parent, and learning what that signal meant. What it learned was this: this feeling is dangerous. This kind of attraction is a threat to my safety, my belonging, my worth as a person. That's not a thought, that's a survival response. And survival responses don't dissolve when you update your beliefs. They shift when the nervous system has enough new experiences of safety to actually relearn what the stimulus means. That takes time. It takes something more than updating your thinking. You can understand this intellectually on a Tuesday and still feel the full body response on Wednesday morning when the alarm fires. That's not failure. That's not a sign the learning didn't land. That's just how conditioning works. And there's a specific body signature that goes with this particular kind of conditioning. You might recognize it. Shame that arrives before you've done anything. A contraction, a pulling inward. A desire to make yourself smaller or to hide the feeling before anyone can see it. A low-grade monitoring of your own inner life. A kind of constant background surveillance, checking whether you're feeling the right things or whether you're safe. These aren't personal quirks. They're the predictable physiological result of living inside a story that has been telling your nervous system since before you could read that some of your desires are suspect and your instincts need managing. So I want to name something here that I think matters a lot, and the words really do matter. There's a difference between guilt and shame. Guilt says, I did something wrong. Shame says, I am wrong. Guilt is about behavior. Shame is about identity. And they feel different in the body. Guilt has a quality of wanting to repair something, to do better. Shame has a quality of wanting to disappear, of a collapsing inward that isn't about fixing anything. It's about surviving, being seen. What most people with this kind of conditioning experience isn't guilt, it's shame. And the giveaway is the speed. When the response is immediate, automatic, and arrives before you finished having the feeling, that isn't moral reasoning happening. That's a conditioned alarm. You haven't done anything. The feeling hasn't even finished forming, and the shutdown is already running. So when Lauren came into therapy, she spent a long time trying to figure out what was wrong with her, not what she actually wanted. What was specifically broken in her that she kept having these feelings even though she'd left, even though she didn't believe the rules anymore, even though she knew intellectually that attraction is human and not a verdict. She had completely taken in the story. If I still feel this, something in me hasn't been fixed yet. And the work that we did, it wasn't reassurance. It wasn't telling her everyone feels this way, because that tends to land as dismissal rather than relief. It was slower than that. It It was helping Lauren see that her nervous system was doing something completely coherent given what it had been taught. The feeling wasn't the problem. The meaning the system had attached to the feeling was the problem. And those are two very different things to sit with. So let's pause here again. We just sat with something that can bring up a lot. So take a breath. Let whatever is moving in you have some room. Is there a version of Lauren's self-surveillance in your own experience? That background monitoring, checking whether what you're feeling is acceptable, whether you're doing it right? If so, what does that feel like in your body when it's running? The distinction between guilt and shame. Does one of those land closer to what you've actually experienced? Not what you think you should have felt, what actually showed up. And again, if nothing specific is coming up, that's completely fine. Some of this lands now, some of it lands later, and some of it lands in conversation with someone else. There's no right way to receive this. And I want to say something really directly because I think some of you might be sitting with some anxiety right now. Questioning the love story you were handed is not the same as deciding you want a different structure. It's not a sign that something is wrong with your relationship. It's not the beginning of a decision you have to make. That conflation, the idea that asking the question means you've already decided the answer, is itself part of the conditioning. One of the ways this story stays intact is by making the question feel as threatening as the conclusion. So questioning it already feels like a betrayal. You can hold this inquiry and not change anything. The question is not the conclusion. And the second thing I want to name is even if you do want to examine this, even if you've already been examining it, the work doesn't happen primarily in your head. You can hear everything in this piece and update your thinking and still feel the full body response tomorrow morning when an alarm fires. That's not failure. That's just how deep this goes. This kind of conditioning doesn't respond to intellectual updating alone. It responds to new experiences, repeated over time, that teach the nervous system a different meaning for the stimulus. That takes time. It often takes support, and it's rarely a solo project. Lauren didn't leave her relationship. She didn't restructure anything. What changed was more interior than any of that. She stopped treating her own inner life as evidence of moral failure. She started being able to notice attraction without it triggering a crisis response. The feeling didn't disappear, but it stopped functioning as a threat to her sense of who she was, because she'd begun actually examining who she was rather than just defending the default that had been handed to her. That's what this kind of unlearning looks like. It's quieter than most people expect. It doesn't always show up in your relationship structure at all. Sometimes it just shows up as being able to sit with yourself without bracing. And one more thing worth naming before we close this section. Not all monogamy is simply conditioning. Some people genuinely examine their options with real information, real space, enough nervous system safety to actually ask themselves what they want, and they land on monogamy as the structure that's right for them. That's a different thing entirely from never having been offered the question. This piece isn't an argument against any particular structure. It's an invitation to actually get to choose. So take a breath and notice what's happening in your body as we close this part and I give you somewhere else to land. Take a moment right now, wherever you are. You don't have to close your eyes if that doesn't feel comfortable. Just let your body settle in a little. Notice the weight of your seat, the temperature of the air, the simple fact that you're here. Notice what's happening in your body right now. There might be a lot going on in there. This topic has a way of reaching into things that we've kept carefully contained. If there's some tightening, some discomfort you can't quite place, that makes sense. You just spent time with something your nervous system may have been taught to treat as dangerous. That discomfort isn't a signal that something is wrong. It might be a signal that you got close to something real. And here's the question that I want to leave you with. Not to answer right now, not to turn into a decision or a plan. Just to hold somewhere in the back of your mind and see what it does over the next few days. When you think about your relationship structure, whether you're in one or imagining one, is there a felt sense that it's actually yours? Not just familiar, not just expected, not just the path of least resistance, but something you've genuinely examined and claimed as your own. If you feel a clear yes to that, go ahead and sit with it. Notice where you feel it in your body. Let it be real. If it's something more complicated that showed up, something you've been trying not to name, I want you to know that's not an emergency. You don't have to act on it. You don't have to tell anyone. You don't have to change anything today. But you are allowed to be curious about your own interior life. That's not disloyalty to anyone. That's just what the work looks like from the inside. And if this is the first time that anyone has framed it quite this way, if no one has ever handed you this question before, I want you to know that that's incredibly common. We're not taught to ask it, which is, of course, the whole point of today. I'm Dr. Misty from Untamed Ember. Thank you for being here.